Anger, often perceived as an uncontrollable force, has been reframed by Stoic philosophy as a choice, one rooted in our judgments, not our circumstances. The Stoics, like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius, faced immense adversity, betrayals, wars, and personal losses, yet they cultivated unshakable calm by mastering their inner world. Seneca's treatise on anger dissects this emotion as a temporary madness, arguing that anger arises not from external events, but from our perception of them. Imagine a coworker undermining you in a meeting. The Stoic doesn't see this as a personal attack, but as a reflection of the coworker's ignorance or fear. By shifting focus from what others do to how we interpret their actions, we reclaim agency over our emotional state. This ancient wisdom isn't theoretical. Modern neuroscience confirms that anger hijacks the amygdala, the brain's primal fight or flight center, but the prefrontal cortex, the seat of reason, can override it with practice. The secret isn't to suppress anger, but to dismantle its triggers through disciplined thinking, boundary setting, and radical acceptance. Secret 1. The power to choose. Rewire your judgments. Stoicism hinges on the dichotomy of control, the realization that while we can't control external events, we always control our responses. This principle, which forms the backbone of Stoic philosophy, offers a profound shift in perspective. It teaches us that our peace of mind doesn't depend on the external world, but on how we choose to perceive and react to it. The ancient Stoics, like Epictetus, recognized the deep power of this understanding, stating, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by their opinions about them." Epictetus, born into slavery, lived this truth every day, despite his external circumstances. Being enslaved, physically oppressed, and socially marginalized, he understood that his mind, his judgments, and his reactions were the only domain he truly controlled. He realized that it was not the situation itself that caused his suffering, but how he viewed it. Take, for example, the everyday situation of being cut off in traffic. A typical reaction might be to interpret the action as a personal attack. They disrespect me. This reaction triggers frustration, anger, and a sense of injustice. In this scenario, you allow another person's behavior to dictate your emotional state. However, the Stoic, grounded in the principle of choosing their responses, might reframe the situation. They're in a hurry, just like I've been before. This interpretation is neutral and free from personal offense. The key difference is that the Stoic chooses not to let another person's actions disturb their inner peace. By understanding that they cannot control others, they empower themselves to remain calm and composed. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and a Stoic philosopher, famously wrote in his journals, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." In the chaos of leading a vast empire, battling wars, and dealing with constant political intrigue, Marcus understood that while he could not control the actions of others or the outcomes of battles, he always had control over his reactions and judgments. His strength lay not in the external world, but in his ability to align his mind with virtue, accepting what he could not change, and focusing his energy on what he could. This Stoic wisdom aligns closely with modern psychological principles, particularly cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which emphasizes the idea that altering our thoughts can alter our emotions. CBT teaches us that our emotional responses are often triggered by distorted or negative thought patterns. By identifying and challenging these patterns, we can reshape our emotional responses to external events. In essence, it teaches us the same thing the Stoics knew thousands of years ago, that our judgments shape our experience of the world. When anger or frustration arises, the Stoic practice is to pause and ask, "Is this situation within my control?" If the answer is no, the next step is to redirect energy inward, because the one thing you can control is your judgment. You may not be able to control the actions of others, the weather, or the traffic conditions, but you can control how you respond. When you practice this, you realize that much of the turmoil you experience is self-imposed. By choosing to reframe situations and judgments, you reclaim your peace and emotional well-being. In practical terms, this means resisting the urge to react impulsively. For example, when you encounter a frustrating situation, instead of immediately reacting with anger or frustration, take a moment to reflect. Is this situation really worth your emotional energy? Can you reinterpret the event in a way that removes personal offense? If you find that your judgments are creating distress, take responsibility for shifting your perspective. By doing so, you reclaim your power over your emotional life and free yourself from the tyranny of external circumstances. Ultimately, the Stoic way of life is about embracing the idea that we are the masters of our minds. By rewiring our judgments and consciously choosing how we respond, we step into our true power. Just as Epictetus taught, our happiness and peace depend not on the world around us, but on how we interpret and engage with it. Through this practice, we learn to navigate the challenges of life with greater resilience and tranquility. In the end, the only thing that truly belongs to us, the only thing we can fully control, is our own mind. Secret 2. Choose your response. One of the most profound insights of Stoicism is the concept of proheiresis, or moral choice. This is the faculty of the mind that allows us to exercise freedom in the face of external events. At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies the realization that while we cannot control the world around us, we always have the power to control how we respond to it. This power of choice, often referred to as the gap between stimulus and response, is where our true freedom lies. It is in this space, the moment between something happening to us and our reaction to it, that we find our deepest capacity for growth, resilience, and peace. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, expressed this principle beautifully when he said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our attitude." Frankl, whose life was profoundly shaped by his experiences in the concentration camps, recognized the immense power of this gap in our responses. He understood that while we cannot always control our external circumstances, we always have the ability to control how we interpret and react to them. The Stoics were deeply aware of the power that lies within this gap. Epictetus, perhaps the most famous Stoic teacher, taught that men are disturbed not by things, but by their opinions about them. What this means is that our suffering is not caused by external events, but by the judgments we place on those events. For example, if someone cuts us off in traffic, our automatic reaction might be anger. We may feel insulted or disrespected, thinking, "How dare they do that to me?" This reaction comes from a judgment that the event is personal and that it's an affront to us. However, the Stoic response would be different. Instead of immediately feeling upset, the Stoic might pause and ask, "Is this situation truly a personal slight? Or could it be that the other driver is simply in a hurry?" By reframing the situation, the Stoic can prevent unnecessary emotional turmoil. Rather than allowing someone else's behavior to dictate our peace, we choose to respond with calmness, understanding, and perspective. This ability to reframe and control our reactions is what makes proheiresis such a powerful tool in Stoic practice. The Stoics believe that we are not slaves to our emotions, but that we have the power to guide our responses based on rational thought and virtue. Our emotional life doesn't have to be a constant reaction to the world around us. Instead, we can cultivate a deep sense of inner peace by choosing our reactions carefully. The events that happen to us are often outside our control, but our response to them is always within our control. To develop the ability to choose our response, the Stoics advocated for daily practices of reflection and preparation. One of the key practices is morning preparation, a technique in which we mentally rehearse potential challenges or irritations we might encounter during the day. This could include things like delays, rude comments, unexpected setbacks, or misunderstandings. By visualizing these possible obstacles ahead of time, we prepare ourselves to respond with calmness and composure. In this way, we prime our minds to react rationally instead of emotionally. This mental rehearsal is not about anticipating every little thing that might happen, but about training ourselves to expect challenges and to meet them with the same level-headedness that we would in any other situation. Another powerful tool the Stoics used to cultivate proheiresis is the practice of mantras for anchoring. These mantras are affirmations or phrases that remind us of our ability to choose our response and stay grounded in virtue. One of the most famous Stoic mantras comes from Marcus Aurelius, who would often remind himself, "No wrong can happen to me." By repeating this phrase, Marcus would anchor himself in the Stoic belief that external events cannot harm his inner peace unless he allows them to. This mantra is a reminder that no matter what happens in the world, we always have the power to choose our attitude and response. We can choose to rise above the petty distractions, insults, and frustrations of life by maintaining our focus on what is within our control. The mantra becomes a mental shield, protecting us from external turmoil and helping us to respond with rationality, not reactivity. In addition to morning preparation and mantras, the Stoics also practiced post-event analysis. This practice involves reflecting on difficult situations after they have occurred, asking ourselves, what story did I tell myself about this situation? How else could I have viewed it? This practice helps us deconstruct our emotional reactions and uncover the judgments or assumptions that led to them. Often, when we reflect on an event after the fact, we realize that our initial response was based on faulty thinking or an exaggerated interpretation of the situation. For example, we might find that a rude comment from a colleague wasn't really intended to hurt us, but we interpreted it as an attack on our character. Post-event analysis allows us to question our interpretations and see the situation from a more rational perspective. Over time, this practice rewires the brain, helping us to break free from automatic reactivity and instead choose more measured, thoughtful responses. The cumulative effect of these Stoic practices is profound. As we continue to apply them, we begin to expand the gap between stimulus and response. With time, this gap grows, and we become more skilled at recognizing when our emotions are being triggered. Instead of reacting impulsively, we learn to pause, reflect, and choose a response that aligns with our values. We begin to default to rationality, calmness, and composure, even in the most challenging situations. This shift doesn't happen overnight, but through consistent practice, we develop a greater sense of control over our emotional lives. This ability to choose our response is one of the key tenets of Stoic philosophy, and it is what makes Stoicism such a powerful tool for living a fulfilling and peaceful life. By exercising prohesis, we free ourselves from the tyranny of external events and empower ourselves to live according to reason and virtue. The external world may be unpredictable, chaotic, and often beyond our control. But by mastering our own responses, we can create a sense of inner stability and peace that remains unshaken by the storms of life. In the end, it is not the world around us that determines our happiness, but how we choose to engage with it. Through the art of prohesis, we find the freedom to live our lives with greater clarity, resilience, and joy. Secret 3. Practical exercise, the Stoic Pause. One of the most powerful tools in Stoic practice is the ability to interrupt the momentum of negative emotions before they spiral out of control. The Stoic Pause is a simple but highly effective technique designed to create space between stimulus and response, allowing you to choose a more rational, composed reaction instead of being driven by impulse or anger. This exercise is especially useful when faced with situations that provoke immediate emotional reactions, such as frustration, irritation, or anger. By pausing, you regain control over your mind and actions, cultivating a greater sense of calm and clarity. The Stoics understood that emotions, particularly anger, have the power to cloud our judgment, and that the most virtuous response often arises from taking a deliberate moment of stillness before reacting. The first step in the Stoic pause is to physically freeze. In moments of anger, our bodies often tense up, and our impulses drive us to act in ways we might later regret. To counter this, stop all movement as soon as you feel the anger building up. This is not about suppressing the emotion, but about interrupting the automatic response that anger triggers in your body. Clench your fists tightly, holding the tension for a brief moment, and then slowly release them. This physical gesture symbolizes the release of the tension in your body and mind, creating a sense of control and awareness. By freezing and focusing on your physical state, you begin to shift the energy from reactivity to mindfulness. Next, breathe deeply. Anger often triggers the body's fight or flight response, causing a rush of adrenaline and a shallow, quickened breath. To counter this, take a slow, deep breath. Inhale for a count of 4, hold for a moment, Then exhale slowly for a count of 6. This deep breathing technique activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which calms the body and reduces the physical effects of anger. By consciously slowing your breath, you interrupt the physiological surge of emotion and restore a sense of composure. Deep breathing has been shown in modern psychology to help regulate emotional responses, and it aligns perfectly with the Stoic emphasis on maintaining control over one's inner state. Once you've taken a moment to freeze and breathe, it's time to ask Stoic questions. The Stoics believed that our emotions are often driven by our interpretations and judgments about the world. By questioning these judgments, we can gain clarity and perspective, reducing the power of negative emotions. Will this matter in a year? This question helps you gain temporal perspective. In the heat of the moment, things often feel catastrophic, but when we take a step back and consider the long-term implications, many of our grievances shrink into insignificance. Will this event matter a week, a month, or a year from now? By considering the transitory nature of life's ups and downs, we realize that many situations are trivial in the grand scheme of things. This perspective allows us to avoid giving undue power to fleeting emotions. What would my best self do? This question invokes your aspirational identity, the person you strive to be. In moments of anger, it's easy to act impulsively, but the Stoic asks, what would my highest self, the person I most admire, choose to do in this situation? Would they lash out in anger or take a measured approach? Would they react with kindness, patience, and understanding? This question helps you align your actions with your deeper values, rather than reacting based on immediate emotional impulses. By visualizing your best self, you can tap into a greater sense of inner strength and wisdom. Is my anger serving any purpose? This question cuts straight to the heart of the matter. Anger often arises from a sense of injustice or frustration, but the Stoic understands that anger is rarely a constructive emotion. It clouds judgment, impairs reason, and often leads to actions that are regretted later. By asking whether your anger is serving any purpose, you force yourself to confront its futility. Is this emotion helping you solve the problem, or is it simply making you feel worse? More often than not, anger serves no productive purpose and only damages your peace of mind. By acknowledging this, you can let go of the emotion and redirect your energy toward more constructive responses. For example, imagine that your partner forgets an important date, like an anniversary or birthday. Your immediate reaction might be anger, thinking, how could they forget? This is disrespectful. However, instead of erupting in frustration, you pause and reflect. Is this anger really worth damaging the connection between you and your partner? Will this situation matter in a year? Or is it a small mistake that can be addressed with understanding? What would your best self, the calm, loving, and patient person you strive to be, do in this situation? Most likely, you would choose to address the mistake with love and compassion rather than reacting impulsively. The Stoic Pause allows you to take a moment of clarity and choose a response that fosters connection and understanding, rather than allowing a fleeting emotional reaction to create unnecessary conflict. The beauty of the Stoic Pause is that it is a practice. The more you use it, the more natural it becomes. With time, you will find yourself pausing before reacting in almost any situation, whether it's an argument with a loved one, a stressful work scenario, or even something as simple as a frustrating delay in traffic. The pause creates the space for you to regain control over your emotions, allowing you to choose a response that is in alignment with your values and goals. It is through these small, deliberate pauses that we cultivate the ability to respond to life's challenges with wisdom, patience, and grace. Incorporating the Stoic Pause into daily life can have a profound effect on your emotional well-being. It is a simple but powerful tool that allows you to regain control over your reactions, cultivate peace in the face of adversity, and live a life that is more aligned with your highest values. By interrupting the automatic momentum of anger and other negative emotions, you create the space for reason, virtue, and tranquility to flourish. In this way, the Stoic Pause becomes a gateway to greater emotional resilience and inner peace. Secret 4. How to start building a Stoic foundation. The key to cultivating anger resistance and emotional resilience lies in the gradual development of daily rituals that strengthen your ability to respond to life's challenges with wisdom, patience, and clarity. Just as a Stoic soldier would train their body to withstand the physical demands of battle, we too must train our minds and hearts to endure the inevitable emotional storms that life will bring. Building a Stoic foundation starts with commitment and practice. Below are some of the most effective practices you can begin implementing today to lay the groundwork for a Stoic approach to life. Each day offers a new opportunity for growth and alignment with Stoic virtues. The Stoics understood the power of intention setting in shaping their actions and mindset. A key Stoic practice that has stood the test of time is morning reflection. The idea is to begin each day with a moment of introspection that focuses on cultivating inner strength, discipline, and virtue. Start your day by spending 10 minutes reading Stoic texts, works such as Seneca's On Anger, Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, or Epictetus's Discourses. These texts are filled with wisdom that will ground you in the Stoic ideals of resilience, self-control, and perspective. Use this time to reflect on the broader truths of life, the impermanence of circumstances, the power of your mind to shape your experience, and the importance of virtue in every action. After your reading, take another 10 minutes to journal. Begin with the prompt, "What virtues will I embody today?" Identify one or two Stoic virtues, such as patience, courage, or wisdom, that you want to focus on throughout the day. By identifying your intention for the day, you prime your mind to act with purpose, especially when faced with moments of frustration or anger. This daily practice of setting intentions gives you a moral compass that can guide you through whatever challenges arise. The Stoic concept of premeditatio malorum translates to the premeditation of evils, and it involves mentally rehearsing challenges and misfortunes before they occur. Marcus Aurelius encouraged this practice, saying, "Begin each day by telling yourself, 'I shall meet meddling, ungrateful, violent, and treacherous men.'" This simple reflection serves as a mental preparation for the inevitable frustrations that life brings, allowing you to remain composed when they actually happen. To apply premeditatio malorum in your daily life, take a moment each morning to anticipate irritations and inconveniences that might come your way. Will you be stuck in traffic? Will someone criticize your work? Will a colleague be unkind? By mentally rehearsing these potential disruptions and imagining how you could respond with patience, calm, and grace, you build emotional resistance and strengthen your ability to remain undisturbed when things don't go as planned. Visualizing negative experiences also helps you develop a sense of control over how you interpret these situations. You can rehearse seeing the situation through a Stoic lens, understanding that disruptions are inevitable parts of life and not personal attacks. This mental rehearsal helps you develop the emotional fortitude needed to face adversity with a measured, peaceful response, instead of reacting impulsively with anger or frustration. Another powerful tool in building emotional resilience is the use of anchor phrases, short, meaningful quotes that act as reminders of your Stoic principles. These phrases serve as emotional anchors, helping you return to your center in moments when stress or anger begin to take hold. One of the most well-known Stoic anchor phrases is, "It's not what happens but how you react that matters," attributed to Epictetus. This phrase encapsulates the core Stoic idea that we cannot control external events, but we have complete power over how we respond to them. Keeping a card with this phrase, either in your wallet, your phone, or somewhere you can easily see it, reminds you that every reaction is a choice. Whenever you feel triggered or upset, pull out your card and revisit the message. Take a moment to breathe deeply, reflect on your reaction, and remember that how you respond is the only part of the situation that is truly within your control. This practice shifts your focus away from the uncontrollable nature of the event itself and brings your attention back to your internal power, the ability to choose your reaction. While individual practices like morning reflection, premeditation of adversity, and the use of anchor phrases are powerful tools on their own, their true value is unlocked when they are practiced consistently over time. The Stoics emphasize the importance of daily discipline. Marcus Aurelius would frequently remind himself to act in alignment with virtue, and Epictetus taught that we must not just learn Stoic principles, but live them each day. Start small. Choose one of these practices to focus on for a week or two, whether it's setting morning intentions, rehearsing adversities, or carrying an anchor phrase. Gradually build from there. You might choose to journal about your responses to adversity in the evening or practice a Stoic pause before reacting to stressful situations. The key is to build momentum by integrating these rituals into your daily life so that they become automatic. The power of this foundation lies in repetition. As you consistently practice these Stoic exercises, you begin to develop an innate resilience that allows you to meet life's challenges with clarity, composure, and wisdom. Over time, you will find yourself less reactive, less prone to anger, and more aligned with the Stoic values of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Building a Stoic foundation is a lifelong process, but by starting with small, intentional daily rituals, you create a strong base from which you can face whatever life throws your way. These practices aren't about perfection, they are about progress. With each day, as you cultivate the habits of reflection, preparation, and response, you grow in emotional resilience, wisdom, and peace. The Stoics understood that true strength lies not in controlling the world around us, but in mastering our own reactions. By practicing these foundational steps, you can begin to cultivate that same strength and embrace the Stoic path toward a more peaceful, fulfilled life. Secret 5. How to stop. Breaking the anger cycle. Anger is a powerful emotion, and when it flares up, it can be like an uncontrollable wildfire that consumes everything in its path: our relationships, our health, and our peace of mind. However, the Stoics, masters of emotional resilience, knew that anger doesn't have to dictate our actions. They developed several effective techniques to break the anger cycle, allowing us to regain control over our responses and transform our emotions into constructive energy. These techniques are based on both physical and cognitive circuit breakers that help us pause, reflect, and redirect our reactions in a way that aligns with our highest self. Breaking the anger cycle is to interrupt its physiological momentum. When anger surges, our body reacts with an increased heart rate, tense muscles, and a sense of urgency that pushes us toward action. To slow this process down and regain control, Stoics would deploy physical circuit breakers that reset the body's heightened emotional state. One of the most effective physical tools to break the cycle of anger is the cold water ritual. When you feel your anger rising, immediately splash your face with cold water. This simple yet effective technique triggers the mammalian diving reflex, a natural response that slows your heart rate, reduces blood pressure, and calms the mind. Cold water has a grounding effect, redirecting your body's focus from anger to a physical reset. The shock of coldness helps to break the immediate emotional reaction and brings you back to the present moment, giving you the pause you need to choose a more rational response. If you're not near water, you can also press your palms to the cool surface of a table or wall, or take a few slow, deep breaths while placing your hands in cold water. The idea is to momentarily shock your system and disrupt the flow of intense emotions so you can regain control. While physical techniques are effective in resetting your body, the Stoics knew that the true power lies in changing the way we think about the situation. One of the Stoic methods for transforming anger is cognitive reframing, the practice of shifting the way we perceive a situation to change how we feel about it. In the heat of anger, it's easy to become overwhelmed by the desire for revenge or to lash out. However, the Stoics advise us to step back and ask ourselves, what is this anger costing me? This simple question forces us to evaluate the long-term consequences of our emotional response. What is anger doing to our health, our relationships, our peace of mind? To deepen this reflection, you can physically write down the costs of your anger. Take a moment to jot down a list of what you stand to lose by remaining angry. This could include things like, anger raises my blood pressure and makes me feel anxious. Lashing out will harm the people I care about. Holding on to anger prevents me from finding peace in the present moment. By seeing these costs clearly in writing, you can reframe the situation. Instead of focusing on the immediate urge to vent your anger, you become aware of the bigger picture, the harm it does to your well-being, your peace, and your connections with others. This reflection helps you let go of the impulse to retaliate and opens the door for a more mindful response. The Stoics recognized that anger, like any emotion, is an energy that can be redirected. Instead of letting it fuel destructive behavior, they learned to channel it into something productive. Marcus Aurelius, for example, would often convert the stress and anger he felt on the battlefield into philosophical writing, reflecting on how to grow stronger and wiser through hardship. In the modern world, you can apply this principle by finding constructive ways to express and redirect your anger. Here are a few examples of how to channel your anger virtuously. Exercise is a powerful tool for releasing pent-up energy and tension. Whether it's going for a run, hitting the gym, or practicing yoga, physical activity helps you release frustration while promoting physical and mental well-being. It also brings you back to the present moment, grounding you in your body instead of being carried away by your emotions. Creative expression. If you're not in the mood for physical activity, channel your anger into a creative project. This could include journaling, drawing, painting, or writing an unsent letter to the person who upset you. This gives you an outlet for expressing your feelings without the destructive consequences of acting on them impulsively. Organizing or cleaning. Another practical way to redirect anger is by doing something constructive in your environment, such as cleaning or organizing a space. The physical act of tidying up creates a sense of order, helping you regain control over your surroundings and emotions. Plus, it creates a sense of accomplishment that can lift your mood. By channeling anger into these productive outlets, you shift from a passive, reactive state into an active, intentional one. You stop being controlled by your emotions and instead use them to fuel actions that align with your values. The ultimate goal of breaking the anger cycle is to prevent it from spiraling out of control in the first place. In addition to using physical and cognitive tools to disrupt anger when it arises, the Stoics recommend developing a practice of the Stoic Pause throughout the day. This practice involves consistently taking time to reflect on your emotional responses, developing a greater awareness of your triggers, and consciously choosing how to act. Pause before reacting. When faced with a challenging situation, train yourself to take a moment before reacting. Even a brief pause, a few seconds, can give you enough time to make a deliberate choice in how you respond. Embrace the third option. When triggered by anger, ask yourself, what is a more constructive way to respond to this situation? The Stoics taught that there is always a third option, a response that is calm, rational, and aligned with your values. Practice identifying this response before acting impulsively. Daily reflection. At the end of each day, reflect on your emotional responses. Ask yourself, what moments triggered my anger today? How did I handle them? What could I have done differently? This practice of reflection helps you gain clarity on your reactions so you can refine your ability to handle future situations with greater poise. Anger, while natural, does not have to control us. By employing physical techniques like the cold water ritual, reframing our perspective on the costs of anger, and channeling that energy into virtuous action, we can break the cycle of reactive anger and instead choose responses that align with our values. The Stoics teach us that by practicing emotional discipline and reflection, we can transform anger from a destructive force into an opportunity for growth, wisdom, and inner peace. Secret 6. Stick to your boundaries. One of the cornerstones of Stoic practice is the ability to maintain clear boundaries, particularly in the face of toxic or disrespectful behavior. Stoicism is not about passively enduring negativity or sacrificing our well-being for the sake of peace. Instead, it's about strategically protecting our inner peace and mental clarity by setting boundaries that safeguard our emotional health. Seneca, one of the foremost Stoic philosophers, understood the importance of this and offered this guidance. Avoid those who stir your anger, as you would avoid rocks that shatter ships. This metaphor highlights how crucial it is to avoid situations and people that threaten your mental stability. just as a ship's captain would avoid dangerous rocks that could destroy their vessel. In the modern world, this advice remains as relevant as ever. We are constantly faced with situations and individuals who can provoke us, test our patience, or erode our emotional well-being. Whether it's a toxic family member, a friend who frequently disrespects you, or a colleague who undermines your efforts, Stoicism teaches us that we don't have to remain in these environments because doing so harms us more than anyone else. A core Stoic principle is that our internal peace must never be compromised for the sake of pleasing others. Sometimes the most peaceful way to deal with a situation is to assertively and gracefully say no. This is not a rejection of the person, but rather a rejection of behavior that disrespects you. Imagine a family member who often criticizes you. They may not intend to harm you, but their words cut deep and leave you feeling drained and upset. Stoicism teaches that while we can't control others' actions, we can control our responses. Instead of silently tolerating their remarks or exploding in frustration, we can politely but firmly assert our boundaries. I value our relationship, but I won't engage in conversations that feel disrespectful or hurtful. I'd appreciate if we could speak to one another with kindness. This approach isn't about being confrontational or cutting ties. Rather, it's about setting a clear, non-negotiable boundary that communicates respect for yourself while also preserving the relationship. The Stoic doesn't allow others to diminish their self-worth or peace of mind. This graceful no requires practice, but it's a powerful tool for maintaining dignity and preserving energy in the face of negativity. Epictetus, one of the most respected Stoic thinkers, reminds us of an essential truth. If someone provokes you, realize your mind is complicit. In other words, it's not just the external provocation that causes us to feel anger or frustration, but how we choose to respond to it. Just as a Stoic has control over their judgments, they also have control over their decisions to engage with certain situations. One of the most Stoic acts of self-preservation is the ability to walk away from toxic or disruptive situations. This might seem like a weakness to some, but in Stoic philosophy, walking away is a powerful act of wisdom and strength. By removing yourself physically from an environment where your peace is being threatened, you take back your power. This act of disengagement is not a sign of cowardice or defeat. It's a deliberate choice to preserve your emotional energy and protect your well-being. For example, if you're in a heated conversation with someone who refuses to listen or engage respectfully, the Stoic response is not to force your point, but to recognize that further engagement will only escalate the conflict. Physically stepping away from the situation is a strategic decision that maintains your peace and saves your energy. This act of walking away is an acknowledgement that certain people and situations are not worth your time or emotional investment. The act of setting boundaries is not just about keeping others out. It's about honoring your own needs, desires, and values. Every time you say no to something that compromises your peace or well-being, you are reinforcing your own self-respect and self-worth. You are reminding yourself that your happiness and mental health matter. The Stoics understood that maintaining inner harmony requires protecting your boundaries, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally as well. In practical terms, setting boundaries may look different depending on the situation. Here are a few scenarios where Stoic boundary setting can be applied. If you're constantly being asked to take on extra tasks that leave you overwhelmed, a Stoic approach would involve politely but firmly communicating your limits. Instead of allowing resentment to build up, express your needs in a respectful manner, such as, "I'm currently at capacity and won't be able to take on additional responsibilities without affecting my current commitments." In cases where a friend or partner is consistently disrespectful or dismissive, you can address the issue directly but with care. For example, "I care about our relationship, but I need us to communicate in a way that honors both of our feelings. I won't tolerate being treated disrespectfully, and I hope we can find a healthier way to engage." When faced with rude or inconsiderate behavior in public, the Stoic approach is to maintain composure. For example, if someone cuts in front of you in line, rather than escalating the situation with anger, you might simply choose to ignore the provocation and move on. As Seneca would say, the wise man is not disturbed by the behavior of others, but remains focused on his own character. By sticking to your boundaries, you reinforce your sense of self-respect and peace of mind. The Stoic understands that peace is not an external condition, but an internal one. Therefore, it's essential to protect that peace with the same vigilance that a soldier protects his armor. Boundaries are not walls that isolate you from others. They are shields that protect you from emotional harm while allowing you to engage in relationships in a healthy and balanced way. Every boundary you set and maintain is a step toward cultivating the self-awareness and emotional resilience that Stoicism teaches. It's an ongoing practice that demands mindfulness, but it is also deeply rewarding. By learning when to say no, when to walk away, and when to protect your emotional space, you build a life that is guided by wisdom, respect, and inner strength. Boundaries are essential for maintaining peace, and Stoicism offers powerful tools to establish and uphold them. Through the graceful no and the wise act of walking away, we can protect ourselves from harmful influences and preserve our mental well-being. By adhering to Stoic principles, we not only safeguard our peace, but also cultivate an environment that allows us to thrive emotionally and spiritually. Boundaries, in the Stoic sense, are not about shutting others out. They are about protecting our own clarity, strength, and sense of purpose. Secret 7. Detach from opinions. One of the greatest obstacles to inner peace is our constant worry about what others think of us. Whether it's the sting of criticism, the weight of disapproval, or the hunger for praise, we often allow the opinions of others to steer our emotions and decisions. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, found this dynamic deeply ironic. He wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than others, yet care more about their opinions than our own. We neglect our own judgment while giving strangers dominion over our self-worth." Stoicism offers a liberating antidote, emotional detachment from the judgments of others. The key lies not in becoming callous or antisocial, but in anchoring your sense of identity so deeply in virtue and reason that outside noise loses its grip. A Stoic doesn't ignore all opinions. He simply discerns whose voices matter and whose don't. Detachment is an act of strength, not aloofness. The first Stoic tool is what we might call indifference practice. When you feel wounded by criticism or social rejection, pause and ask, would I seek this person's advice in a crisis? Do I respect their wisdom? If the answer is no, then why give their scorn the power to disturb your peace? Seneca put it simply, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Much of our emotional pain comes not from what others do, but from the story we tell ourselves about their opinions. Practicing indifference isn't apathy, it's discernment. You can still be kind and receptive to feedback, but you become immune to noise. You realize that the world is filled with people projecting their own fears, insecurities, and unresolved issues. Not every opinion deserves a seat at your table. One of the most powerful techniques the Stoics employed was mental visualization, a way of shaping the mind through deliberate imagery. When facing verbal attacks or subtle slights, Marcus Aurelius trained himself to imagine that such words were like arrows hitting a fortress wall. They clattered to the ground, loud perhaps, but powerless. The fortress represented his rational mind, impervious to irrational assaults. Try it for yourself. When someone insults you or undermines your confidence, close your eyes for a brief moment. Picture yourself surrounded by a massive stone wall, solid, ancient, unshakable. See the words as arrows, sharp and swift, flying toward you. But instead of penetrating, they strike the stone and fall harmlessly to the earth. The wall doesn't flinch. It doesn't retaliate. It stands. This imagery rewires the mind to associate calm with insult and distance with discomfort. Over time, your emotional immune system grows stronger. You stop being pierced by every sarcastic comment or backhanded remark. The Stoics' true source of validation is not praise from others, but alignment with virtue. Epictetus taught that only what lies within our moral character truly belongs to us. Everything else, reputation, status, popularity, is outside our control and therefore irrelevant to our well-being. This principle is liberating. It means you no longer have to chase approval or fear judgment. Instead, you measure your success by internal standards. Did I act with integrity? Did I stay true to my values? Did I handle that situation with dignity? If you can answer yes, then you have won. You can build this muscle through journaling. Each evening, reflect on your interactions and ask, where did I stay rooted in virtue? Where did I allow others' opinions to shake me? Over time, this practice fosters resilience and deepens your self-awareness. Many people spend their lives trapped in a cycle of people-pleasing, adapting, contorting, and shrinking to win favor. The Stoics saw this as a form of slavery. As Marcus Aurelius warned, it is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. People-pleasing, at its core, is a fear of rejection. It's a desperate bid for belonging. But in trying to please everyone, you lose yourself. The Stoic path asks a different question. What would I do if I were free from the fear of judgment? That is the path of truth, authenticity, and joy. The irony? The more you detach from the need to be liked, the more respect you tend to earn. People gravitate toward those who are calm, centered, and unwavering. By becoming immune to opinions, you become magnetic. Detaching from the opinions of others isn't about arrogance, it's about sovereignty. When you no longer let praise inflate you or criticism deflate you, you gain access to an unshakable peace. You become like the stone wall, unmoved by passing arrows, anchored in your values, and fortified by reason. Secret 8. Respond with silence. In a world addicted to reaction, where every insult seems to demand a response, silence is the Stoics' most radical and powerful tool. To the untrained mind, silence may look like weakness or avoidance. But to the Stoic, it is a disciplined refusal to surrender peace to provocation. When insulted, Cato the Younger, one of Stoicism's most unshakable figures, once responded to a belligerent drunk by walking away, simply stating, "I refuse to argue with a drunk." In that moment, he didn't just avoid an argument, he demonstrated mastery over himself. This is the essence of the Stoic silence: strength under control, power expressed through restraint. Silence achieves what arguments cannot. It denies the provoker the attention they seek. Anger and hostility feed on engagement. When you don't respond, the cycle breaks. Silence also preserves dignity. Words spoken in anger often become regrets. But when you remain silent, you give yourself space to choose a response grounded in virtue rather than impulse. Seneca warned, "Anger is an acid that can do more harm to the vessel in which it is stored than to anything on which it is poured." By choosing silence, you protect yourself from becoming that vessel. Moreover, silence buys time. It is not inaction, it is the fertile pause in which reason takes root. In that pause, you can ask, what would my highest self do here? Is this insult truly worth my energy? Marcus Aurelius believed that insults are powerless unless you choose to accept them. By remaining silent, you become the fortress he spoke of, unshaken, immovable, self-contained. Visualization can help. Imagine insults as arrows clattering harmlessly against a stone wall. They cannot penetrate unless you allow them. In today's world where responses are expected instantly and emotions often run unchecked, silence becomes a kind of rebellion. It's rare and therefore powerful. When you respond to disrespect, not with retaliation, but with calm detachment, you unsettle the aggressor and affirm your own strength. You're not being cold, you're being deliberate. That's the Stoic ideal. Not passive, but purposeful. Of course, Stoicism does not advocate for silence in all situations. There are moments when truth must be spoken, when injustice must be addressed, and when love deserves to be voiced. But even then, the Stoic speaks only after asking, will my words serve virtue, or am I simply reacting? As Seneca wrote, speech is a mirror of the soul. As a man speaks, so is he. In that spirit, silence becomes the forge in which meaningful speech is forged. Responding with silence is not about suppressing your voice, it's about mastering it. It's a commitment to inner sovereignty, a rejection of being baited by chaos. It's a reminder that not every battle is worth fighting, and that peace is won not by controlling others, but by controlling yourself. So the next time someone tests your patience, don't erupt. Pause, breathe, say nothing, and let that silence become your greatest show of strength. Secret 9. Practice gratitude. Gratitude is not merely a fleeting emotion. It is a deliberate Stoic discipline, the antidote to resentment, and the key to sustaining peace amid conflict. While modern culture trains us to chase what's missing, Stoicism teaches us to cherish what's already present. Seneca, in his timeless wisdom, wrote, "No person has the power to have everything they want, but it is in their power not to want what they." This is not a call to complacency, but an invitation to realign our desires with what is truly within our control. When resentment creeps in after an argument, a betrayal, a disappointment, practicing gratitude is the act of reclaiming sovereignty over your emotional state. Rather than ruminating on what went wrong, the Stoic pauses to reflect, what did this teach me about patience? Each difficult encounter becomes a classroom. Every irritation becomes a mirror revealing our inner work. This practice shifts the narrative from victimhood to agency. Anger often arises from unmet expectations or wounded pride, but gratitude reframes the experience. Instead of focusing on the offense, you focus on what the moment offered: wisdom, clarity, resilience. A powerful journaling ritual after conflict is to ask, how did this reveal my growth areas? Maybe you noticed your temper flaring too quickly, or perhaps you withheld compassion. This isn't self-blame, it's self-honesty. The Stoics held that true strength comes from confronting one's flaws with courage, not shame. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on his own shortcomings, not to dwell on them, but to refine his character. Gratitude then becomes a vehicle for transformation. It allows you to see a challenging person not as an enemy, but as a teacher. Another critical question to ask is, what can I still appreciate about this person or situation? This doesn't excuse harm or deny pain. Instead, it balances the ledger. Maybe the colleague who criticized you also pushed you to do better. Perhaps the relationship that ended painfully helped you rediscover your values. As Epictetus put it, seek not for events to happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do, and your life will flow well. This mindset is not resignation. It is radical acceptance infused with gratitude. Gratitude also helps dissolve the ego's craving for control. When you appreciate what is, rather than grieve what isn't, you stop trying to force life to meet your terms. This serenity fosters emotional immunity. You may still feel hurt, but you are no longer defined by the hurt. You learn to sit with discomfort and still see beauty in the broader picture. And most importantly, gratitude rewires the mind for contentment. Neuroscience now confirms what the Stoics intuited. Regular reflection on what you're thankful for increases baseline happiness. It dampens the brain's negativity bias and fosters resilience. In this way, a daily Stoic gratitude practice, rooted in thoughtful journaling and quiet contemplation, becomes both shield and salve. You stop resenting what life didn't give you and start appreciating what it quietly, generously has. In the end, gratitude is not about pretending everything is fine. It's about realizing that even in imperfection, there is enough. Enough to learn, enough to grow, enough to be grateful. And that realization is the birthplace of lasting peace. Secret 10. Master the art of letting go. Letting go is not weakness, it is wisdom, earned, not inherited. In the Stoic tradition, the act of letting go represents the pinnacle of spiritual strength. It's not about indifference or emotional numbness, but about clarity. The clarity to see what is yours and what is not, what belongs to your will and what belongs to fate. As Epictetus reminded us, don't demand that things happen as you wish. Wish that they happen as they do, and you will go on well. This single line contains an entire lifetime of resilience. To master the art of letting go, you must first understand this. Clinging is suffering. We cling to how people should behave. We cling to apologies that never arrive. We cling to outcomes we've imagined, to stories we've written in our heads about how life should unfold. But Stoicism offers a radical, liberating idea. Your peace does not depend on the world conforming to your desires. Your peace depends on you releasing those desires entirely and learning to flow with what is. The Stoics weren't just philosophers of thought, they were philosophers of action, and they believed in rituals of release, deliberate practices that help translate insight into transformation. One such practice is the write and burn ritual, and it can be a deeply healing tool. Take a journal, or even a scrap of paper, and write down everything you are holding on to. The person who wronged you, the opportunity you missed, the version of yourself you can't seem to forgive. Don't write poetically, write truthfully. Pour your grief, frustration, and bitterness onto the page, and then, safely, burn it. Watch the flame devour every word. Let it be a symbolic death of what no longer serves you. As the smoke rises, whisper, "I release what I cannot control." This isn't superstition, it's a psychological reset, a physical gesture that tells the body and mind, we're letting this go now, we're done carrying it. But letting go doesn't stop at a single ritual, it becomes a daily discipline. Stoics practiced affirmation replacement, consciously replacing harmful, reactionary thoughts with ones rooted in reason. Every time resentment bubbles up, repeat to yourself, "I govern my mind, the rest is indifferent." This isn't just a mantra, it's a worldview. You are not powerless in this storm. You are simply learning which waves to ride and which to let pass beneath you. Marcus Aurelius, arguably the most powerful man of his era, used his journal to remind himself daily of this truth. Soon you will have forgotten all things. Soon all things will have forgotten you. To the modern ego, this may sound depressing, but to the Stoic, it is freedom. If all is transient, fame, failure, heartbreak, joy, then nothing deserves to enslave your soul. Not an insult, not a betrayal, not even your own past mistakes. You are not your anger. You are not your pain. You are not your regret. You are the awareness that sees these things rise and fall, like clouds passing across the sun. Letting go also requires compassion, for others and for yourself. It is not a cold severance, but a warm, mature acknowledgement that life moves forward, that people are fallible, that you too will disappoint and be disappointed. The Stoics didn't call for detachment out of cynicism. They did so out of love, for the peace that only acceptance brings. Epictetus urged, "When you kiss your child at night, whisper to yourself, they are not to depress yourself, but to love them more fully, to let go of the illusion of permanence, and to embrace the preciousness of each fleeting moment." In everyday life, the art of letting go means not holding on to grudges that eat at you for weeks. It means not revisiting old arguments in your mind like they're sacred texts. It means choosing your peace over your pride. When someone speaks ill of you, remember this simple rule. Would I go to them for guidance? If not, why accept their criticism? Visualize your sense of self as a fortress, unbreachable by the chaos of others. Their noise cannot enter unless you open the gates. Letting go also applies to success. The Stoics warned against attaching your worth to outcomes, even positive ones. Seneca wrote, "Success is not in our control, only effort." Celebrate effort, celebrate integrity. Let go of needing validation from applause or recognition. Those things come and go. What remains is the quiet pride of doing the right thing regardless of the result. So what does it mean to live this, not just know it? It means when you are cut off in traffic, you breathe and smile. When you are betrayed, you feel the pain, but do not build a shrine to it. When life doesn't go your way, you remind yourself, this is not punishment. This is the path. You return again and again to the present moment, the only place where peace ever truly exists. Letting go is not a single act. It is a lifelong practice. It is waking up each day and choosing not to be ruled by the past, not to be haunted by expectations, not to be chained to things you were never meant to carry. You are not Atlas. You are not made to hold the world. You are made to walk through it lightly, wisely, and free. In the end, letting go is not about forgetting. It's about forgiving, freeing, and finding the stillness that was within you all along. And in that stillness, happiness, real, quiet, powerful happiness, can finally begin. The Stoic secret to eradicating anger isn't a trick. It's not a life hack or some overnight cure sold in slogans. It's a profound, lifelong discipline. It's the ancient art of mastering your perceptions, guarding your peace like sacred ground, and responding to the world not with impulse, but with deep, cultivated intentionality. Marcus Aurelius, a man burdened with the weight of an empire and surrounded by betrayal, violence, and constant provocation, still found the courage to whisper to himself amid chaos, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." That's not just poetic philosophy, it's a spiritual warning. The emotions you indulge, the thoughts you rehearse, the narratives you cling to, they don't just pass through you, they become you. Anger, if left unchecked, doesn't just visit. It takes up residence. It paints your soul in shades of bitterness and chains your days to a reactionary prison. But the Stoics offer another way, a path that doesn't ask you to repress your anger, but to understand it, to interrogate it until it loses its grip on your inner life. They teach us that provocations are not personal affronts, but spiritual tests. Every insult, every slight, every betrayal is an invitation to practice virtue, to meet darkness with light, and rudeness with reason. This mindset doesn't just reframe your thinking, it rewires your nervous system. Over time, with practice and patience, your automatic response to conflict isn't rage, it's reason. It's not vengeance, it's wisdom. Epictetus reminds us that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Anger often arises from stories we tell ourselves, stories of disrespect, injustice, or offense. But remove the story, and what remains? Just energy, just a spark. And like fire, anger dies when it is starved of oxygen. The oxygen is your judgment, your attachment, your insistence that life must follow your script. Cut that off, and suddenly peace rushes in, not because the world changed, but because you did. The Stoic path is not about becoming cold. It's about becoming clear. It's about becoming a person whose power lies in restraint, not reaction. Who can stand amid storms and still choose the calm center. Who can experience the full range of human emotion without becoming enslaved by any of it. Who can walk through betrayal and not become bitter. Who can be disrespected and still respect themselves. Who can lose but never lose themselves. And this is what makes Stoicism revolutionary in a world addicted to outrage and validation. In a culture that tells you to clap back, the Stoic quietly walks away. In a society obsessed with control, the Stoic smiles and releases what they cannot command. In an age of endless noise, the Stoic chooses silence. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they know their peace speaks louder. So if you want to live a life unshaken by the chaos of others, if you want to walk through fire without burning, if you want to train your mind to be a fortress, not a battlefield, then embrace this discipline. Embrace the Stoic rituals of reflection, release, and reason. Anger is not your enemy, it is your teacher. But only if you listen before you speak, pause before you react, and reflect before you judge. Let this be your new standard. Never lower yourself to meet anger. Always rise above to meet virtue. Let it echo every morning when you open your eyes. Today, I will meet fools, critics, the ungrateful, but none of them can harm me, unless I let them inside my peace. Guard that peace. Cherish it. Let it be your most sacred possession. If this message stirred something in you, if it gave you clarity, power, or peace, then do us a favor. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more Stoic wisdom that cuts through noise and leads you back to yourself. Remember, the work is daily, the path is narrow, but the destination is freedom. See you on the next step of the journey.